It's no secret that I really enjoy sim racing on PSVR2. I find it some of the most immersive gameplay that you can have on the entire platform, and GT7 is the place to do that. But there was one thing about GT7's online racing that was a little confusing to me, and that was the fact that Polyphony use rolling starts for most of their online races, or pretty much all of their online races until 2 weeks ago, and today's race is the first time they implemented grid starts. There's also grid starts in this week's daily races, so if you missed it last time, you haven't missed out completely, but this adds a whole new dynamic to the game, and to be honest, this is my preferred way of starting a race. Before we jump in and we take a look, only 25% you are subscribed, so please feel free to do so, and thank you to our patrons and YouTube members for being part of the channel and bringing this content straight to you. Now let's check out what would have been my second race of the grid starts on GT7. But anyway, we're in qualifying at the moment in the Turismo. I really like this car. I did actually run through a race before this. This is the second time I tackled this daily race, and the first one was in the Huracan, and I did find it pretty fun, but I found it a little bit too snappy, a little bit too oversteery, which I do find in these Group 3 cars. But I switched over to the Turismo, and I was still kind of finding my footing with it at this point, and I didn't really have too much time to put any qualifying laps down, so I wasn't looking for anything too fast, to be honest. I just wanted to get to grips with the car a little bit before the race started. But I did find myself a bit more comfortable in it, managing to get some better times, but kind of finding where the edges of the car performance was. But overall, the timing here put us in P12, which isn't high up at all, but in a grid start, it's going to be quite hectic, and I had a feeling that maybe I could push my way up to the front a little bit more because everybody's starting so close. And honestly, I wish GT7 would do more grid starts like this. They're really fun. But anyway, let's go on to the race. Lining up here, yeah, P12, not exactly where I want to be, but I know there's going to be carnage up front. And with the Turismo, I feel pretty comfortable that I won't really spin out. The main thing that I'm worried about is track limits violations. In the race before this, I had a couple of those. I did find it quite easy to extend past track limits in the Huracan compared to the Turismo, so hopefully none in this race, because that was the biggest kind of pitfall of the last race. But the lights are going up and they're about to go out, and hoping for a good start here. I want to kind of barrel down the inside a bit, so I turn in, and the car in front decides to do the same thing, and seemingly either not put the power down at all or brake. Luckily I didn't spin him out, but he did get kind of sent forward from that, and I've dropped back to P15 immediately, so quite bad. Cut down the inside, we have a bit of a clash there, gave him some space. I was a bit too aggressive on the start, but that is how grid starts sometimes end up being. We're up to P13 now, just checking my mirrors, making sure that he's still there. Of course, you do have the reliance of the radar as well, but mirrors is kind of the easiest way for me to grasp onto where people are. Turning in there, the guy to the left of me even decides to kind of turn in a bit as well in the braking zone. Bit of contact there, but we're up into P10, which is very good. Constantly checking mirrors, that's the name of the game here. Trying to kind of navigate and survive the opening stint of this race. Almost a little bit of contact there. I think there was a bit of contact, to be honest, but not enough to make any noise or anything like that. But we are keeping it pretty clean, going side by side into these corners. Do I yield through here? I do give him, well, when to give him the space. Yeah, he does take the space. I was unsure where he was going to kind of pull out there, but through we go. Power down flat now, and they slot in right behind me, so we're kind of in the clear a little bit here in P9. That is the braking zone for people taking penalties, as you can see there. So in the previous race to this one, I was taking quite a couple in the Huracan, which is not what I wanted. But anyway, no track limits violations for the first lap. We've made up quite a few positions, starting from P12, going back to P15, and out to P8. Now, there is one mandatory pit stop in this race, but we're going from soft to soft, so there's no sort of like tyre strategy unless it rains, which it doesn't seem to be, as a massive scrap happens with P6 and 7 there, and that means we're up to P6 after seeing that collision occur. That was a little bit wild there, but you do see that quite a lot in T1. In the Red Bull Ring, is when people just kind of send it around, not knowing that somebody is up on the inside in the braking zone. Slowing it down into first there, a little bit wide, a little bit not carrying momentum as I'd like it, but we've got a bit of a gap to the cars behind, which is exactly what I want in this situation, because we're kind of like settling into the race here. 11 laps with that one stop. I want to kind of give myself some breathing room, especially when taking that pit stop. You want to take it and not be caught behind somebody. However, without like a race engineer to kind of tell you where everyone is, it's kind of difficult to see whether you're going to or not. And also in the VR view of GT7, you can't see a list of what compounds people are on, when they pitted, how old their tyres are, like you can in the flat screen, which is one of the biggest detriments of the VR2 version of the game. And I wish they got on that and fix it. It's one of the most commonly requested things by VR players. But that just leaves it up to a guessing game of when I pit or whether I'm going to come out in traffic or not. And also just leaves me to my own devices to try and make a gap. Now, I am losing a bit of time to the cars in front, but they are fighting a bit. So if they end up kind of scrapping with each other and slowing each other down, it's going to leave me a decent opportunity to get maybe up to like P5 or 4. Now, the aim of this race for me is to get above P8. So that's kind of always the aim for me. That's kind of where the points start, so to speak, in GT7. If you get up to P8 or above, as I have a little bit of a mistake there, and shake my head, I am quite harsh on myself during races. If I have a bit of oversteer or understeer, I do kick myself a bit there. But anyway, yeah, so P8 or above, you essentially start taking elo from the players below you, and that's when you start gaining, basically, in your driver class. P9 or below is when you start losing it, and players above take it from you. So you want to be getting P8 or above, and right now we are. That was a bit of a weird upshift from me then, as we shift down into first tier. An okay line, a little bit too greedy on the apex. I feel like I could have got the power down a bit better if I took that a little bit smoother, but it's fine. We're not being really gained on in the cars behind, so that's all okay. Another bit of a strange downshift, but it's me kind of grappling with the Turismo. I've been driving the Huracan for so long in these daily races, since the changing to like the tire model and suspension and all that. I found that the Huracan was kind of my familiar car to go with every time, but using the Turismo instead is a bit of a different story, because it feels a little bit more unwieldy to drive in certain places. As you can see, understeered a bit there and took it outside track limits. Luckily, that one doesn't result in a penalty, but I was very worried about that. And that was the #1 place, I think, at Rind, I think is the name of that corner, where I did some violations of track limits in the race before. We have gained a little bit on the cars in front, mostly from them fighting. I think my game plan here is to get these guys on the undercut. So I'll pit a little bit earlier, maybe like lap 5 instead of lap 6, but I'll see how I'm kind of feeling later on. And that would probably be the biggest chance for me to make up some time on the fresh tyres, because the softs do degrade fairly quickly. A little bit of oversteer there, a bit of anger from me again, which is kind of funny watching back. But each oversteer snap like that is crucial lost time, so yeah, you can understand why it is a little bit frustrating on the driver's side of things. Right, turning down here now towards Worth, I think is the corner next. Or is it Rorsch? I can't remember in the Red Bull Ring. I tried to remember, but it is quite difficult. But basically trying to take this through, a little bit of power in second, up to third, and then we brake, shift down. You can just shift down once here, and I found that did work quite well for me. Well, not quite well there. That was a little bit too wide. But in the other laps, worked okay. And unfortunately, there is our first instance of a penalty for half a second. So this is going to make my job of getting to the cars in front a lot, well, harder, because I'm going to have to slow down and not just take that half a second penalty even. You kind of feel the effects of that, because it does slow you down for that amount of time, and then slows you down in terms of your actual momentum and speed because of the braking penalty. So I'm going to have a bit of a challenge here. I'm going to have to make up probably like a second, 1.2 second. There'll be a couple more tenths more than that actual half a second penalty for the cars in front for me to make up on my undercut if I want to get up to, say, P5 or P4, because this battle ahead is becoming further and further away from me that I'm not able to really catch up. But I just have to get my head down, keep driving. It's no detriment to me right now for the rest of this lap until I reach that braking point where I need to slow down for the penalty, so I might as well send it as much as I can and get it a bit closer. And luckily the cars behind are pretty far away, so even with the half second penalty, they shouldn't catch up too much. There should be a couple seconds at least, or second and a half plus between me and the cars chasing me, for me to kind of have a bit of breathing room. That's the main thing I found in GT and any racing games, really, is the hardest part is when I have that pressure from behind. I'm trying to chase people ahead, but I'm having to watch my mirrors. That's what I don't want, because as soon as I'm thinking defensively, then I'm not thinking about my lines properly in terms of how I can take them at speed. I'm thinking about blocking off lines, and I'm thinking of defending rather than trying to be fast. There we go. Okay, there's the half a second penalty served. Shifting down a couple of gears to kind of make it as smooth as possible, and I decide to pit on this lap, which is lap 5 as we thought, I think. Yeah, it is. Now, pitting in GT7, you don't really have to do anything. I'm kind of mixed on that. I feel like driving through the pit lane could be something really immersive if they turned it on, but in daily races at least, like in a GT7 as a whole, pitting is just done by the game. So you don't have to worry about any pit times or anything like that being inconsistent, but we're coming in for new softs, and this is where I need to make up that time. So the pit crew, whack on the new softs, out I go. No new fuel in the car because I don't need any more fuel. We're plentiful in terms of fuel for this race. Coming out the pits, got to be very careful not to cross over the pit line. And it turns out there is actually somebody pretty close to me on the pit exit, and that is kind of a sinking feeling for me. I'm now back in P12, but not really in P12 because a lot of people need to pit still. But yeah, that's a bit of an oh dear for me. He brakes fairly early as well, and I do send it in a bit of a haste there. Bit reckless, to be honest. That is on me. I tap him around the back and kind of unsettle the back of this car. I just wasn't expecting him to brake as early as he did, I guess. And I was trying to be quite aggressive to get past, because as soon as I saw somebody else next to me coming out the pits, I'm thinking, I'm going to get held up. There is no way I'm going to be able to get to the rest of the field where I need to be or have a clean outlap. That's the thing. I needed a clean and fast outlap to try and make up as much time as possible. The guy behind is still kind of clinging on and trying to gain, but I'm quite a bit faster on the fresh tyres, so I'm kind of just flying through here. You can see with that grip I was able to shift down to third and take it around there a bit smoother than I did in the lap where I got that penalty. So come around here for the second to last corner. Bit of a tight line through there. Almost, yeah, and they're shaking of the head there. Almost another penalty, I would say. I don't think it was another penalty. Yeah, it wasn't, but really not happy with that. And the car behind has pitted for fresh tyres. Now I'm basically in free air now. No threat of any cars behind me. I've just got to send it as possible. And now we rejoin the fight a little bit. So after that straight of kind of being on my own for a couple of corners, we're back in the fight. So we're in P8, scrapping over it with this guy. P8, P7, and P6 is up ahead. Very, very possible to get. I'm battling Ken Block Jr. as well, it seems. Now I've learned my lesson from last lap. Didn't want to send it stupidly and hit him in the back, so let him have that position. And who knows, if these two fight in front, they're a little bit faster than me and it ends up like that, then maybe I can take advantage of that. I'm also unsure how many other people are pitted, so while I'm P8 now, I could be P6 or above by the time that people go through the pits. But I'm now officially back in the pack, which is what I wanted. I made a bit of time on that outlap, and then by the time they pitted, well, they're face to face with me again. All right, line through there, pretty quick, gaining some time. Do we shift down twice? No, just the once. Tip it in, back on the power. No track limits violations to be seen there, luckily, but if I overdid it there, it would have been. Itching my head there, I think, is that little that little head tilt. Ooh, a bit of a bad upshift there. These two are fighting very much here, and contact, and one of them goes flying off the side, spinning into the barriers. Ken Block Jr. gets a 4-second penalty for that. And going past the pits, we have overtaken some people who have pitted. So now we are up into P4, which is pretty fantastic, if I do say so myself. Ken Block Jr. is having a bit of a scrap here. Now, going through my head at this moment in time was, I've got this driver behind me that has a 4-second penalty, has just smashed another driver off the road, completely missed his braking point. What is to stop him from doing that to me? So I'm just trying to be a little bit cautious, kind of be as predictable as I can in case he's, you know, maybe he isn't malicious, maybe just made a mistake, but you never know with GT drivers. So I'm trying to be as predictable as possible and also give him some openings if he wants them, because ultimately he's going to get that 4-second time penalty as soon as we hit the end of this lap. So I'm in the free air, so I leave that inside line open a little bit for him to see if he goes for it, but he doesn't seem to want it. So close back up, take it through here. And a bit of a gap between me and Mr. Ken Block Jr. there, Ken Block's son, it seems. Oh, I always struggle with the downshift through the two left-handers here, but doesn't seem to lose too much time in that particular instance. And this guy's about to drop into the abyss as soon as we hit this braking penalty marker. So we hit it, and there he goes, off into the distance. See you later. And to be honest, that was kind of the last of the resistance from any drivers. For the rest of the laps, I was kind of left to my own devices, just to try and keep it on the road, not get any more penalties, and luckily, I didn't. So, here we are on the final lap. I'm not trying to push the limits here at all, I'm just trying to bring it home because the drivers behind, although I can see them in my rear view occasionally on the straights, they're not really that close. So as long as I don't make a massive mistake, then I'm all set. So taking it through here, trying to keep it slow and steady, well, not slow and steady, but steady and on the track, on the tarmac. Only 2 corners to go. I cannot make a mistake here, otherwise, I mean, it's all for nothing. Yeah, trying to take it as neatly as possible. There we go, through, keeping it all within the lines. And now we're on the home stretch, and I'm very happy with that. It's been a while since I did some daily races, and this race and the race before this were kind of me getting back into it a little bit while I was home before university, back on my wheel setup. So I was really happy with that, showing that I've still kind of got it, you know, even though I'm in Group C, so I'm not really high up there. I can still put in some decently competitive performances despite a couple of errors, but I'm still learning, of course. I wish I could race a little bit more frequently, but thank you all so much for joining me today. Thank you to our patrons and YouTube members, all of which are on screen right now. Well, the channel wouldn't be here without them, so thank you so much for them. Please feel free to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you all in the next one.